Welcome to the World Builders Library. We're back in Armitage this week. That's the little town we're developing in hopes of expanding the bastion rules and working up a whole system for ways to include economic concepts into your Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition or other TTRPG. This series has been going on for a while now, probably the most in-depth thing I've got going on the channel. These episodes usually run in 3 parts. Part 1 is resolving the decisions that we made last episode. For us, a month has passed, probably about 3 sessions if this were a real campaign, and it's been a year for Armitage. You can adjust as your campaign requires, but there is an implication of long timelines for this sort of campaign. That's enough chatter. I'm hoping to keep part 1 on the short side today. As usual, we're going to start with the big money maker for Armitage, the Electrum Mine. That means 76 minus 74 times 1,000, and possibly the beginnings of this town's biggest boom year yet. Alright, let's see. Oh yeah, 34 minus 20. That's a starting point for this year's budget of 14,000. That's really about average, just a little bit higher because of the recent improvement in the mine. We're rolling more dice now. We now have 4 other moneymakers, 2 trade routes, one of which is in its warm-up year, the Camel Ranch, and the shipwrights. That comes out to a profit of 3,000 on the southern trade route, 1,000 for the ranch, and a loss of 1,000 for the shipwright. That puts our income at 17,000 total so far, and also means that the boatyards are in danger next year of failing as a business investment. Now, just so that we really know what we're looking forward to, let's resolve the party's year in adventuring. If you didn't know, there is a 4-lady team called the Ponderosa Posse. They run the town. They're a 10th level party, and occasionally still get to go out and have some fun on the trail. Our thought experiment is not taking into account any chance that they might die, just because that would end the experiment. So we know they're going to make at least some money. We just don't know how much. Let's roll a d20 for luck, a d10 for their level, and a +6 for the preparation that they did before the adventure. Oh, nice. An 18 plus 2 plus 6. It's going to give us 26. 25% of that is basically 4,000 gold pieces. Next year's budget, before the security roll, is now 17 plus 4 plus 3, left over from last year. That begs the question, what is that security roll? Drum roll, please. It's 12 on the dice. Minus 2 for a core score of 7, plus 1 for the military wing helping out, and plus 2 for the relevant bastions. That's just shy of 14, which is what we said last time was the required number for no loss. So let's keep round numbers. We'll lose 1,000 gold and solidify our opening budget at 22,000. Next up is the religion roll. Another disappointing year, no new temples. Now the amenities roll. 19 after modifiers. We continue to grow and pick up new experts. 19, 13, 11, and 16. Those 4 numbers are the scores for our new experts. You know, I sometimes think that I get really lucky when it comes to rolls here. I mean, the town's never lost money in a year. But when it comes to our experts, that 19, it hurts to say it, but it's in agriculture. The 13 is in trade. That's going to go to the Manzamea trade route. The 11 is a diplomat, a duplicate for Zadie's Hall, so not super useful. And the 16, well, I have been leaving that social programs category on the list for a reason, I guess. I'm going to have to let this all simmer a bit, so we'll circle back to it shortly. Trade roll. It's a 3. We're not going to be able to sell everything, and there will be other ramifications. I did need to figure out how to keep the trade score relevant, and I guess the relevant way is just to, roll really low. I'm going to need a resolution phase to mop up the resolution phase. Industry suffers with a modified 3. Yeah, alright, so this is where a DM realizes that fate is telling you something. Something's happened to the town over this last year. Uh, and this is exactly why we have DMs, to put a story to the numbers. Lucky me. Alright, score improvements. We're going to start out with a crit for admin. That's a big jump for an important score. Industry, amenities, military, the river node, both trade routes, the camels, the shipyards, religion, and education. With a roll of 2, they all go up, as does the market. The only roll we missed was the sheriff. We missed the trade score too, because that seems to be the theme for the week. We missed it with a fumble. That means it goes down a point. Here's the new chart. And finally, we're going to roll on this big old incomplete mess of an events chart. Now, I don't really have numbers assigned yet, so we're going to roll a d20 for the category. 1 through 13 is going to pick one in order, and then 14 to 20 is going to be all as well, as that is the biggest part of the chart that we cheated from the DMG. And I rolled an 8, which is losing an expert. Another random roll, and guess what? It's one of our trade experts, the guy on the river node. So, Armitage clearly had a lot of instability in trade over the last 12 months. Lost a point of core score, lost an expert, and just generally had a terrible core roll. And it affected local businesses enough that some of them are going to move out. And that means soon we're going to have to resolve our current situation with business and industry. It did not affect the residents' comfort or cost us any money, really. So we're going to have to game something out here. Think about it. For purposes of the system, we don't really have to. What we have to do is decide if any of this is going to affect next year's decision making. However, it is nice to come up with a story, right? After all, one of the popular descriptions of our hobby is as a collaborative storytelling game. I think I'll go with the expert we lost belonging to a noble family back in Manzamea. Members of the family tried to use the expert as a route to move in on our town's profitability. The locals were left to deal with it because our adventurers were off adventuring. They didn't do so great of a job. It was a mess. Caused a lot of disruption, a little short-term lack of confidence in the trade routes. This issue, it has been resolved. Now it's going to sour Armitage's opinion with the homeland a little bit. Trade shortages will have to be dealt with. I will say right now that next year's amenities roll is going to be at a penalty of 2, and only half of this year's Electrum is going to get sold. Yeah, so much for a short part 1. So let's talk about reputation. It took me a while to figure out how I really wanted to handle this stuff for Armitage. It definitely has a lot to do with leadership, but the renown of a hero is different than the reputation of a city. Also, reputation is a lot of different things, at least in the direction that I'm heading. At the very least, we have trade reputation, military tradition, and, well, I need a good name for it, but destination worthiness, basically. Kind of a tourism attractiveness. Is the place safe? Is the entertainment value good? Is it a place that people want to go to visit and maybe stay? Safety is definitely a factor too. So my first problem was the relationship between the core score and the associated reputation score. And that doesn't mean every core score is going to have a associated reputation. The thing was, how do they influence each other? How are they different from each other? Now, we had already decided that there was a relationship between the real population and the town's development level as determined by an average of the key development scores, and that these would gravitate toward each other. High scores would draw up the population, Low scores would draw down the population, and it was kind of one orbiting the other. They would influence each other. So how do you throw in this third factor? And I just kept circling back to this supposed realization that, I mean, really, it was just the same thing. That the reputation and the core score weren't any different. But I really like the idea of military tradition. I have for a long time. It's not just for Armitage. It's something I've worked with before in other projects. So what was this reputation thing going to add to the system that we're developing? I thought about maybe using reputation as currency, maybe like spending favors and such, but that meant that you would be tempted to tank your scores for some other purpose. This would be like the equivalent of spending years creating a fair trader reputation only to betray those values for something. I mean, a profit? And does that kind of thing really happen? Does it? God, maybe it does. But real life sucks, and we don't want our fantasy life to suck the same way. So I threw that idea away. I finally came back to the idea of how does this relate to a character's renown? And the idea of the score representing opportunity is where I landed. A character with high renown is more likely to be sought out as a business partner, maybe a silent partner, maybe somebody to get some juicy quest by a patron. As such, high reputation should make it more likely that high-end opportunities and experts come to town. It might be the opportunity to recruit generals for having a high military tradition, or rich merchants because you have a fair trader reputation. So I feel like that fits into the town events chart that we started working on last week. Very convenient. So let's play around with some of what I came up with. So that was all several weeks ago. So big break here, trying to get back into the development of this video. But what you should be seeing is a modified Armitage events chart. It is the all as well section. I've cut it down from half of the chart, 50%, down to 27%. It seems more fitting because we want a lot of stuff on here, and there's plenty from later in the chart that is still good stuff. It's not just this first half that's good stuff. What I have done, other than just chopping down the numbers, is adding the possibility of alternatives if you have high tradition scores. Right now, what we're working with is trade reputation, industrial reputation. I'm sure there's a name for that. We'll come up with it at some point. Military tradition and a piety reputation. So what I've done is, if you roll an even number between 2 and 24, in other words, if you land on this all as well chart, but you do it with an even number, and you qualify with a high enough reputation, you can choose the alternative from this chart, which is not completely done. It's just the general idea here. But you, with a high industrial score, industrial reputation, or trade reputation, you would get gold to add to your budget. If you have a high military tradition, you might get a hero joining your forces. And if you have a high piety reputation, it's probably going to be something like a temple improves or a church moves into the area. When it comes to military tradition, this is something I've thought a little bit more about over the years.
but it doesn't all necessarily apply to what we're doing today. It contributes to manpower if you want to raise a military quickly. It can be how big the force is, but it can also be just how quick it is to pull the community together. Uh, Also, how prepared is that force? With a low military tradition, you're basically raising a peasant army. A high military tradition, and the Highlanders are coming down from the mountains ready to brawl. A high military tradition, society is the sort of culture with lots of honorary statues and pseudo military groups like the Boy Scouts or the Scouts in general, young cadets or ROTC programs. An eagerness for war might not exist, but a preparedness will. Phyllis, one of the members of our founding fighting team, the Ponderosa Posse, very much wants to develop a military tradition in Armitage. That is her goal. It goes hand in hand with wanting to build a mercenary corps. That is going to lead us back to our events chart. Specifically, what if there is an attack? This section is really built for that military tradition to make a difference. I've modified the numbers a little bit. You should be seeing on the screen now the modified chart. You, in any given year, have a 1% chance. That's not really true. Like a 7%, 6% chance of some sort of attack. Now, this is what DMs are for. When you're dealing with this chart for a bastion, this is just some dice rolls, something happened, these are the results. You don't really get to interact with it. Of course, that's up to the DM. This is still a random chart. This is still designed to do things for when the players are not directly involved. For a thought experiment, that's easy. They're never involved. So, as a DM and a storyteller, you can build up what kind of encounter, what kind of attack you're wanting to happen. You can lay what clues you want. You can decide what is absolutely going to happen because there's a dice roll. At its base, you've got a 1% chance of things going well, and you get an increase in your military tradition. There's a 2% chance that it's not automatic, that increase. The city defends in both cases, but now you're going to roll a dice. If it's above your current military tradition score, you gain a point. Then you have a 3 or 4% chance that that raid was successful. That can still mean a lot of things. That might mean that the farm land in the vicinity or a trade route or a mine was attacked. And even that has various levels of potential devastation. If you roll raid successful, you should definitely lose something, unless we, and even then maybe, we'll have to think about that. But this is where we're kicking in a use for military tradition, because you're going to roll a d20 for severity. Low is bad. A 1, if you haven't set any preconditions, a 1 means the city is sacked, buildings are burned, civilians are killed, mass devastation. If you roll high, you're going to lose some stuff, but not as major. Now you are using your military tradition score to modify this. You're using the full score. So if your military tradition is a 7, you're going to add d20 plus 7, 27. In this case, it's going to be windfall. Reserves of stone and lumber are captured. Now, like I said, this probably should still mean that the raid was successful. There was damage taken, but there was a benefit to go along with it. Now, you can mitigate that. That's up to you. This is why we have DMs. The chart is meant to generate random things. You can build into that as much as you want. Now, you also have things that can happen of professionals offering to join, They hear about the battle. I guess that would be one reason that the raid successful is actually not successful. It was actually defended, and they heard about the great battle, and they're coming to join the ranks of the illustrious. Or maybe they're coming to join because they sense a need that, hey, these guys are looking for help. Again, you're the DM. A lot of this is completely up to you. You can weigh this however you want to. If you're using this chart in session, this is prep work. This is sometime in the coming up maybe that this is going to happen. So you can roll in advance on the events chart if you're going to allow interaction rather than rolling after and saying, hey, all this stuff happened. You can do it either way. Completely up to you. We're doing it after the fact. We're not doing a real campaign. This is a thought experiment, so it works. Let's have a quick think about the annual trade roll before moving into the planning phase. Now, functionally, we've just been using this to determine if we can sell all the ore we dig. If it can be sold, we assume everything else is going okay. We talk occasionally about the availability of food and goods, even how it's tied to amenities, but all that kind of gets handled in the same broad stroke. That said, we have been very trade focused from the beginning, and it's just recent bad luck that's kind of put us in a bad position. So amenities is about growth. Security is about crime and incursion. Industry might be about taxes, but business growth for now. Trade is about supply. And in all cases, as we get bigger, as Armitage grows, our DC goes up. Right now, it's low, but we're dealing with penalties from low scores. As it gets higher, we're going to get bonuses. So we should still be consistently hitting decent numbers. So as I ramble on, the real question is, what do high numbers mean to all these core score rolls? We're getting to the point that we can regularly, or at least occasionally, get over a 20, and we need to know, what does that mean? Now, it looks like I had a really big thought here. It's like an indented paragraph. Let's find out what I thought about 3 weeks ago. Trade. This is a core development score in all but the most isolationist settlement builds. Early on, it is a determination of whether the basic needs of the town can be met. This is rolled per cycle as a DC of the town's average development score. The score can be spent to create trade nodes. A dev level on trade nodes can be created by reducing the core score by 1. And I do have a side note here that I probably ought to work up something that involves the range of the trade node, how far away it can be from our central colony. Maybe something like a mile squared per development point. Something in that range. All right. Trade routes can then, no, trade nodes can then be used to facilitate trade routes. A trade roll over 20 or a natural 20 entitles the settlement to a second event roll, re-rolling until the DM rules it's something relevant to trade. Ooh, that sounds like it belongs in a manual or something. Where do you think we're heading with this, folks? Are you going to be able to buy all this off the shelf someday? That'd be something. Well, I guess let's get into part 3. First, though, let's do the stuff. Leave a comment, like, sub to the station. This station encompasses one of the many black holes of YouTube. It is a tiny sub-niche of a already low popularity subject matter. I could make money with rage bait political commentary, but here I am developing a system for economic gaming. We're all crazy, right? Me for making this stuff, you for listening. Now you can all at least make me feel good about it. I am easy to please. And as far as where we're going from here, for the channel, or for this series, I might just work my way down the events chart for a while. It's all important stuff. If we're ever going to make this a solid thing, that's a major part of it. Then again, we might just jump into figuring out taxes. All right, we got some money to spend and experts to assign. 22,000, and we're going to have up to 6 experts. I feel like we're at a point where we make or break the current rendition of our system. The budget could still go bad, but every year the odds fall further out of favor, farther into our favor. So let's see if setting up 28 rolls can end the experiment by cracking the whole system. Just a thought that no more than 3 investments in a single score in a single season. It just seems like too much. There is a rule of limited returns. So, our experts, we're going to go with agriculture. The second ag guy that we need to remember him. We're going to come back to that. So we're doing agriculture, admin, amenities, social programs, and industry. For money, and I lied just literally a few seconds ago. Forgot about our disaster with the trade rolls. Back at the beginning of the video, that means we are throwing 11,000 banked in ore. But that still leaves us 11,000 to spend. And means next year could be ridiculous. Next year we're breaking the system. So we got 11,000 gold. 2,000 is going to be spent on hunting for a super duper mining expert. Our bard is going to highlight that. Spearhead it. She is going to find somebody. We can teleport pretty freely back and forth between Armitage and the homeland, and we are going to do it. This is our goal. 1,000 each into the camel yards. Trade route 1, trade route 2, node 1, node 2, the shipyards, healthcare, and trade. Times 2 on the trade. We got some ground to make up. Now, our mage is going to be trying to redeem herself as the educational expert. And we're going to tentatively plan on opening a school of mining as soon as we can. It'd be cool if we could roll 2 mining experts and go from not having anybody and just depending upon our good fortunes, and then suddenly have an expert here and an expert to put in the mine. Phyllis is going to act as a military expert. Madge is going to give us the religion roll, give the religion roll advantage next year. Institutions are going to be pushing amenities and security, just like last year. All right, let's wrap this thing up. What we've got left is that agricultural thing. You know, the fates have really been messing with our trade efforts. Really, they set us back this year if you think about it, and that's okay. Because at the same time, the dice have been pushing agriculture for some reason, so we're not going to fight it. It kind of started out with all those decanters of endless water that I decided to throw into the mix, and it continued with this unlikely run of experts we've had. So, our new 19 guy is not going to the core score. He's not our core expert. They are founding a new state-owned, for-profit sorghum farm. Sorghum is a drought-tolerant grain, so a good fit for our region. I'm glad that all of you lunatics stopped by to listen to this mess. I am still having fun with the series. When I first dove into this episode, I was incredibly invigorated, having all kinds of fun, and even started thinking about, hey, this could be a publishable system someday. Scary thought as that is. Then for the last month, I've been having some health issues, but hopefully I'm better now. I can tell you my voice is out of practice. I'm This is about all I could have recorded today, so luckily we are at the end of the video. Now, each and every one of you, you are all important to this process, and it's great that you were able to drop by. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Cheers.